let's get back in the mountains for a final hoon with the Up GTI. Is it a better GTI than the 7.5 GTI Performance? Hello and welcome back to the Volks Wizard channel. Unfortunately, I need to begin this video with some very, very sad news. After 12 years on sale, Volkswagen will cease production of the Up before 2023 is out, and that unfortunately includes the GTI version, which has been on and off sale for quite some time now. I guess you could say time is up for the Up. But it's not all bad news. To mark the occasion and celebrate the life of the Up, and in particular the GTI, Volkswagen UK have kindly loaned me this car. And regular viewers of the channel will know this isn't just any Up GTI. It's a very car I drove on the original press launch in South Wales in early 2018. And there's only one place worthy of filming a farewell video with this car, and that is the mountain roads used for that original press launch just outside Crickhowell, which is where I am now. But before we go for a final farewell hoon, I'm going to give you a tour of the locations used for the press launch and give you some behind the scenes information I've never shared before. But first, let me give you a tour of this very special, at least to me, Up GTI. Actually, let's notch up this location while we're here, because it was this very lay-by that I used for the walk-around video of this very car back at the launch event in 2018. It's very, very scenic, as you can see Crickhowell's down there in the valley. And yeah, it's just beautiful with the sun on the mountains over there. Now, as I said in that original video, the press event cars went to other members of the media for longer term testing. I'm pretty sure this one went to Autocar, because a couple of weeks later, they published one of their very in-depth road tests on this very car, and it did, I think, quite well. After that, it vanished. I never saw it again. And I think I'm the first person to make any content with it since Autocar had it in 2018. Apparently, it's been doing other things in the Volkswagen Group. It's notched up 3,500 miles now, but that wouldn't take very long, you know, for a press car anyway. So yeah, it's not been used an awful lot. It's in absolutely immaculate condition. And as you'd imagine, it's 100% factory spec, even down to those infamous Goodyear Eco tyres, which actually aren't what nearly killed me on the launch event. That was more to do with the black roof, which we'll talk about later. Let's quickly talk about options. Now, this car was a 31st of January 2018 reg, which is very close to the dealer demo cars. They all had a car. They were all basic at the dealers as far as I remember. These press cars got a bit of spec though. Now, the black roof was a couple £100 option. I think pure white was an option as well. The bit I missed in that original walk-around video though was this sensor, which signifies the car's got auto headlights and emergency city braking. So on that note, let's have a look inside. No cruise, no rear parking sensors. So it still looks great today in here, and the tartan really does brighten the place up. The seats, there's not an awful lot to them, but they actually are pretty comfortable. This is a very rare sight actually, auto lights on and up. And then we have down here an extra button, which some people thought might be to turn the traction control off. Sadly, it's not. It's to turn the emergency city braking off. So if I press that, there we go. So not particularly exciting, but I love having auto headlights. It's another thing that makes this car feel like a normal car, not like a budget car. And that actually brings me on to something else, which is very, very important. There is another option that was £75. And this car has got it. It was originally unclear as to whether it would be standard or not. It turns out it wasn't. So a lot of guys didn't order that, but it's only little. But if you're carrying a passenger and you don't want them to think they're in a budget car, not having an adjustable passenger seat is not a great idea. For £75, everybody should have ordered it, but it kind of makes me a bit sad when I see one that doesn't have it. So there we go, guys, KT67WCE. Yeah, I am slightly emotional here because a lot has happened in my life in the intervening 6 years. Not all of it good. But anyway, let's now move on and I'll give you a tour of those special locations that we used on the press launch. Now, before we go to the first location, I want to give you a bit of context about this press launch. Now, my first filming of the GTI took place about a month earlier, thanks to Lee Evans at Cheltenham Volkswagen. And innocently, naively, I didn't think Volkswagen UK would be bothered. I thought they might think it's a good thing. But as it turned out, it wasn't really, because a week earlier they'd shipped people off to the south of France to try non-customer spec cars, and some of the content from that hadn't even been released, and there was me in the UK driving a UK spec customer car. So I didn't expect to attend this media event, and I certainly didn't expect to get 2 invites. I think it was something to do with the Geneva Motor Show being really close that people couldn't make it. So my editor Neil Burkitt couldn't make it, so he delegated it to me, and Richard Orcock, who was writing for Motoring Research, couldn't make it, and he suggested I go in his place and take a Lupo GTI and do a comparison, not a video, just a text thing for their website with photography, which was really exciting. So I drove from Birmingham, because I was living in Birmingham then, in my Lupo GTI to Crickell, and met Scott, who was the VW PR guy at the time. He's moved on now, and he was okay. We did have a little chat about not using dealer cars, or well, using only press cars for review, which was interesting. And they made a point that the tyres, the car had done 20 miles, it wasn't running, it's not representative. They make a point of putting at least 500 miles on their press cars before the press can drive them. Anyway, what made matters a little bit worse was, from my first drive at Cheltenham, I'd also written a review for Volkswagen Driver magazine, and believe it or not, that was published on the day of the UK media event. So I'm not sure, but I got a feeling other members of the media weren't particularly happy, because you're effectively jumping the queue. You're a lowly channel, you're working for a lowly magazine, and yet somehow you managed to jump the queue for the cars. Anyway, I, as you probably know, carried on doing that for a long time, and then in 2021, I think, I had a good chat with Volkswagen press office, and we came to some agreement which involves me using their press cars, but I can also use dealer cars as well. And that's something a lot of dealers didn't know, because they had an instruction from the press office not to lend cars to people with camera equipment. Well, actually, as long as they contact the press office, that's okay, just to check it's okay. So if you are a main dealer and you want to work with me, then let's do it. Right, we're at this location now. Got to be a bit slow in and up GTI, because it's a bit rough on the entrance, but this is, yeah, it's pretty scenic. So this was, I guess, the designated photo location for the event. It's a car park on the top of a hill. I'm not really sure what it's called, but I'll put a map on the screen now and you can see where it is. It's popular, particularly at weekends. I think there's like a pizza van here and stuff like that. And yeah, it's beautiful. So Volkswagen posted a van here with spare wheels in it, manned by a guy called Craig, who works for the press office garage. Hello, Craig. He's a proper GTI guy. He's got a Mark II Golf GTI, I think a 16 valve, that was used by Top Gear when they filmed the Club Sport F thing in Germany with Sabine Schmitz. And yeah, he knew of the channel, so it was really nice to see somebody from Volkswagen who was actually really sort of friendly with me. And we had a good chat, and I said, did you come for the Club Sport S launch? And he said yes, and that was based here as well. So yeah, it's a pretty special location, this. So I got up here with Scott from Volkswagen press office in another up GTI, tungsten silver one with the Lupo GTI, and shot the cars here with this amazing backdrop. So let's now move on to the next location, which is the one I nearly died at. Well, this is where I nearly died. It's a popular walking spot. So I took the wrong turn up to the mountain car park, and I ended up on this road. I should have been on that road over there. And I realised it was pretty quiet and there was no traffic. So I thought I'll pull up here And because the black roof was a big thing, I thought, well, it's a really good place to climb on this bridge and take a photo of the black roof, which I did, and I think it got duly published. But what I've never told anybody is that when I was on this bridge walking along it, I actually took a wrong step and fell on the ground. My camera took the brunt of it. The only reason I got away with it was because I was wearing a really padded gilet from North Face that took a lot of the impact. That's bad enough, but if you think about the implications of falling the other way, either onto the hard path or into the canal, which, bearing in mind it was only just above freezing, I'm pretty sure I may not be here today to tell the story. I'm not even going to get on it now because I have such a phobia of it since that day. If you want to see the black roof though, there you go, lovely. Okay, we're now on the road that goes down from that mountain car park we were at earlier. This is a nice road to drive, it's got some nice corners, but it's super important with regards to me and the GTI, because in this car, on that corner, it taught me a lot about the GTI. Now, I've probably said this on Instagram or Twitter before, but when I drove the dealer car at Cheltenham a month earlier, I'd nearly written it off because it just decided to slide off the road without an awful lot of loading on the front tyres. Now that car was brand new, and it's a bit silly really with not running tyres to be pushing them, but actually I wasn't pushing them that hard. Anyway, we put that near miss down to the tyres being not run in. So when I came to Crickhowell driving press cars that have done 500 miles minimum, the tyres should be well run in. I was expecting the car to feel more like a GTI should. Now, to give you some context, it was quite cold, it was about freezing. I think the roads had been gritted, but it's this corner now which is a brilliant test because it's quite tight, but then it tightens, and I tipped the car in, and then just here, and it did it just then as well. You have to tighten lock a bit more, and it didn't like that, and it took me straight back to the near miss I'd had in Cheltenham, which reminds me that when they were dishing out the keys at the press event, the PR guy Scott said, and I'm sure he was looking at me, and maybe he'd heard about my near miss at Cheltenham, he said, don't go ringing us up telling us the cars are on its roof, the car's on its roof on fire. So basically, I don't know whether he was aware of how unpredictable the front end grip was on the GTI with his eco tyres, or whether he just says that at every press event. Okay, now let's go into town where I can show you where the event was actually based. Well, welcome to Crickhowell, gateway to the Brecon Beacon. So it's a nice little town. It's got the A40 going through the middle of it, which I guess takes away some of its charm, but it's nice. And you can get away from the hustle and bustle quite easily. Some lovely walks up the hills. But this was the hotel where we stayed. So a famous coaching inn right in the middle of town on the A40. Maybe it was the evening because all the cars were out, but they were all lined up. It was dark, so it must have been the evening after the first day. They were all lined up here. Right now, let's get back in the mountains for a final hoon with the GTI. Okay, so while we climb up to the mountain roads, I just want to talk about a few things that I didn't fully appreciate at the time, because it was really just a brief bit of driving in the car, nothing like what you get to learn when you have the car as a daily driver, which I did a few months later. So with the benefit of experience, I can tell you I don't necessarily like the driving position that much. We haven't got a reach adjustable steering wheel, only rake, and it's okay, but I feel like I'm a long way from the steering wheel. My arms are aching a bit because I'm stretching so much. I could do with it being a little bit closer. Then we have the ventilation. There are actually no central vents here. There's something on the top of the dash there, but how much that blows towards you, well, you can't adjust it. And when you've got the phone in the phone holder, it obscures it largely anyway. So that's a bit of a big issue for me, because I think ventilation is really important in a car, because it can stop you getting drowsy, and that obviously has safety implications. So yeah, these are okay, but I don't think you can have too much fresh air. And then we have this sort of phone connection thing. It's a nice idea, but I still haven't worked out how you can have it on Bluetooth audio and have it charging on the USB port. You get it connected on Bluetooth, but that drains your battery really quickly, so you want to plug it in, but then you plug it in and it starts to try and read from the USB the output of the phone, and there's no playable tracks. I think it works itself out in the end, but I still haven't cracked out how to get that to work first time. That could just be me. Right, let's now get up to the proper roads and we can talk about the good and the bad when it comes to the GTI's dynamics. Well guys, welcome to the mountain roads. I'm not sure exactly what this area is called, but it's just up the road from Crickhowell. And when I drove this very car back in 2018, I said it was a bit like being on the Nürburgring in that you can learn a lot about a car very, very quickly. And it's true, you can, but you can't learn everything. And in the meantime, I must have done many tens of thousands of miles in up GTIs, and I have learned a lot more about them. The biggest issue for me is that they do tend to bang and crash when they hit not particularly big imperfections in the road. This road, as you can see, is actually largely perfect. I mean, there is something there, but it's easy to avoid it. When you're driving in urban situations, you're looking at lots of other things and you kind of miss stuff, and that's when you'll get a lot of banging and crashing. It's not a very nice sound, that. So yeah, I didn't appreciate that here at all. And also, when we drove the cars, it was dry. It wasn't warm and the surface wasn't brilliant, but it didn't really trigger the traction control much. As you can see, the roads are pretty clear, so you don't need to overtake, and that's when I found the traction control intervening was the biggest problem. You'd get on the wrong side of the road and want power, and the traction control would kick in even in the dry, and that would see you standing there on the outside on the wrong side of the road with no power. So yeah, there was not really the situation where that would have been a problem here. I never launched the car either. If you do a traffic light Grand Prix, you'll feel the traction roll kick in, and that's not great. As you can see, there are no traffic lights here. So what we'll do now then is turn around. Now I've got that off my chest, because it bugged me that that big dynamic flaw, the way the car bottoms out, wasn't reported on by me. So yeah, but as I say, in the future I'll get an up GTI and we'll find a way of sorting that with some uprated parts. Basically, the car was cheap when it came out. It's not so cheap now, and Volkswagen didn't have much of a budget, and they did an amazing job with the money available, but that means that there's a potential to make it a lot better if you spend, you know, a bit more with Koni or Eibach or Bilstein or, you know, someone like that. Okay, so what do we like? Well, the engine, traction control on. It's got a lot of go. So much torque, 200 Newton meters in a car that weighs a ton is plenty. The shift is great. It's nothing special, but it's good. You can roll it around just for the fun of it. I've never misshifted an up GTI. I have stalled them though, because the clutch is a little bit hard to modulate when you're pulling off from stationary, but when you get going, that's not a problem at all. The brakes, even though there are drums at the back that look rubbish, they work, and I'm told they work okay on track as well. Steering feel, it's a little bit glassy, but it's okay. And this is that corner again. I'm in second gear now, so I've got a bit more control, and yeah, it doesn't really change its weight, even if you're like chucking it around a corner like that, but you can feel what's going on, and when it pushes into understeer, which it quite often does, you'll feel that and you can come off the gas quite easily. And what's really nice is that it's so small and it's so light. You can take corners that you feel a bit white knuckling, more powerful, grippier cars, but because you're shifting, I hate that blind corner, because you're shifting so little weight, the up can keep up with them. So in that video I did a Scandi flick here, but I don't know why I did that, to be perfectly honest, but that's nice. You could feel the tyres over speeding there, and we were off. Traction control didn't actually ruin the fun, and that's the magic of this car. It's just a lot of fun. If I lived out here, trust me, I would have an Up GTI, because it's just made for these roads. I think the Club Sport S on these roads must have been a bit like a caged animal, but this car is just totally up for it. So much so, I want to do that again. After all, this is a farewell Hoon. So first gear, pretty much up to the rev limiter, turn in, have some trust, yeah, and you get back on the gas and it kind of just pulls the car straight again. It's quite good, almost like it's got a VAQ diff. And then it's another lovely right-hander. Do we want third? We probably want second, don't we? Let's face it, it does 60 in second. So it just runs a bit wide then. Not on fire on its roof, I know. And then slight overspeed again over this crest. Oh! And this road's, as I said before, really quite smooth, and it handles it really nicely. It really flatters the car onto the brakes for this tricky corner that starts tighter and then loosens up coming this direction. And yeah, there's no real room to get things wrong. Mind you, we're in a small car, so we've got a little bit more leeway than most cars. And that is it, guys. Bye-bye Up GTI. I think Volkswagen should produce a run-out edition called Time Is. The Time Is Up. Get it? Well, they've done stupider things like that with Rock Up and all that, so you never know. Pull one off the production line, put some stickers on it, I'll buy it. Well guys, the sun is setting here in Crickhowell, just like it's setting on the Volkswagen Up range. It's a real shame that it's been deleted now from the Volkswagen range, because the Up is a true Volkswagen through and through, and it's a people's car in the fullest sense. It was affordable, but not through cheap materials and poor build quality like the gimcrack Fox that came before it. Some very, very clever people were involved in its development, paring back where they could, no doubt inspired by the Bauhaus design philosophy of providing affordable and functional design for the masses. Every model of Up exceeded expectations, but the GTI simply blew them away. Today has reminded me how much fun this car is, and I'll tell you now, it's a lot more fun than a Mark 1 and a Mark 2 Golf. Is it a better GTI than the 7.5 GTI Performance that you could buy at the same time? Well, no, that's an amazing all-rounder, but I think when it comes to smiles per mile, there is nothing, I don't think, that's ever been in the Volkswagen range that can touch the Up GTI. Well, my time with the Up is up. As ever, guys, thanks for watching this Volkswagen video. Keep subscribing, keep commenting, and I'll see you for the next one very soon.